This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. That battle between Ron DeSantis in Florida and the Disney Corporation just went nuclear. Disney is fighting back against the retaliation it's suffering for expressing its First Amendment rights to oppose policies in Florida that are bad for its employees and its customers and the world, like don't say gay, trying to indoctrinate children not to recognize inclusivity, diversity, belongingness, LGBTQ plus rights. And Disney said, you know what? We employ 75,000 people in Orlando and in Florida. We give millions of dollars of tax dollars. We are a corporation. The Supreme Court says we've got First Amendment rights too. And ours are being violated by Florida, who Ron DeSantis retaliated against Disney by passing a series of bills to put them under his thumb. I'll talk about that more in a minute, but what's going on right now? Disney is firing back finally, and this week is hitting Ron DeSantis where he lives, right in his pocketbook, right in his tax receipts. And they're saying, you know what? Why are we continuing to invest in Florida if Florida doesn't want to invest in us? So, hey, Florida, this is my artist rendering of Disney and Bob Iger, the chairman. Hey, Florida, you know that $1 billion corporate park we were going to build? We're not building it any longer. And that, you know, those 2,000 people from California, we were going to move to Florida to site them there, to put them there in that headquarters. We're not doing that either. And you know that really nice hotel that we just built called the Starlight Hotel that's dedicated to Star Wars theme and Star Wars people, that fanatics that love that thing, and these specialty rides related to it? Yeah, we're canceling that too, and we're closing that down. We're moving that probably to California where it belongs. Or as Bob Iger just told analysts, related to the financial condition of the company the other day, Florida's got a choice. Do you want us to put more employees there? Do you want us to bring in more tax dollars? Do you want us to make more investment, or don't you? You can't have it both ways. You can't continue to bash us and go after us and attack us and sue us and stop us from being able to use the property that we acquired with Walt Disney flying over in a crop duster 60 years ago, and expect us to stand here and take it. So finally, Disney, after taking it for 6 months against Ron DeSantis, filed that federal lawsuit in the beginning of May, assigned to a democratically appointed judge. And DeSantis didn't like that either. He didn't like the fact that there is a First Amendment case against the state of Florida because Ron DeSantis is trying to retaliate and has retaliated against Disney. So what has he done? More retaliation. So the first thing that Ron DeSantis does is completely dissolve the government, the self-governing entity that controls Disney, which used to be called the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which is basically a little government, a little nation that Disney controlled, and it controlled its own destiny. Look, this is back when public-private partnerships were welcome in Florida. Go back and Google and look at the photos of the governors, 8 or 10 governors ago, who welcomed Disney Walt Disney with open arms. Disney is Florida and Florida is Disney. They took this mosquito-ridden citrus grove in the middle of Orlando. I used to live there, I can say this, and developed it into Disney World. If it's not the number one worldwide attraction for families and children, putting aside Las Vegas for now, I don't know what is. But Ron DeSantis, he's not going to rest until he completely wrecks the entire state of Florida. He makes it and forms it in his own idolatry image as he runs for president, which is going to be a losing battle anyway. But put that aside for a minute. So what's Disney supposed to do? So they fought back with the federal lawsuit. Now they're fighting back this week by canceling billion-dollar projects, a shot across the bow. Bob Iger said out loud, what do you want, Florida? Do you want our employees? Do you want our money? Do you want our tax dollars? Do you want us to invest in property, or don't you? Because you can't have it both ways. And of course, DeSantis is pissed because before the last meeting of the Reedy Creek Improvement District with all the people that were, under Disney's control, they passed and put as an easement on the land that runs with the land for all time. They approved a comprehensive plan. This is how land use and zoning works in Florida. They passed a comprehensive plan that gives the the dotted line, the metes and boundaries, the metes and bounds of what the future of Disney growth and development will look like, all approved. They may not use it yet, but once the comp plan is approved, then within the comp plan, you can go in for governmental land use and zoning approvals. Right? So they got a comp plan approved that gives them growth for the next 50 years. They can build 1 or 2 giant new parks, bigger than Epcot, bigger than Disney World, in the land that they already own. Of course, DeSantis didn't like that. So he had a law passed last week in Florida that said, the new governmental entity that I just established that takes over from the Disney-controlled one, they are not to recognize any of these new laws, any of these new comprehensive land use and zoning plans that were approved by the prior board, which is completely rogue, and it wasn't done properly under public notice, and it can't be respected. That's my artist rendering of Ron DeSantis. Now, what's happened next? DeSantis didn't like the federal lawsuit that was filed by Disney. So he went and filed last week his own state court action with a state judge. And he said to the state judge, please declare the rights and declare that what happened with the Disney-controlled board in granting itself these elaborate real estate and land use and zoning rights is invalid. And Disney's now fired back in state court and said DeSantis's bill, its new law that he just passed with the legislature that rubber stamps everything that Ron DeSantis wants to do in Florida, is too smart by half, because they've just destroyed their ability to get any relief in state court, because they're asking the state court judge to declare the rights. And DeSantis passed a law that doesn't allow them to recognize the contract that they're suing under in the state court. So Disney's telling the judge, dismiss the case. They already passed a law that's not in front of you that doesn't allow them to comply with the contract. So how are you declaring the rights under the contract when the government says the contract is invalid? Bye-bye lawsuit, and we'll see. Even if that doesn't work, Disney makes a really compelling argument under the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution and under the priority doctrine that their case filed in federal court, the Disney one, goes first, and that the state court case, which came a lot later, has to get stayed, has to get a pin get put in it until the federal case is over under the doctrine of priority. We're going to see how all that plays out. In the meantime, Iger for Disney is playing hardball. He's put on his brass knuckles. Today, it's the elimination of $1 billion investment in Florida and all the jobs that go with that, and killing a hotel that's already up and running. Tomorrow, who knows what it is? I'm sure it'll be a major investment in Anaheim, California, in the other Disneyland, or he opens up something in Mexico, or maybe in Canada. Or do you know who would really love Disney World? Puerto Rico would really love Disney World. It doesn't have to sit in the middle of landlocked Orlando, Florida, or Kissimmee, Florida, in the middle of what was orange groves. It can go near the beach. It can go near water. It can go near any airport in a temperate climate that will support it. And you don't think there's states out there that would want Walt Disney World to come? Look at the people that are fighting over soccer teams and paying $500 million for a soccer team, paying billions of dollars for the Washington Generals and for baseball. What do you think a state or others would pay to have Walt Disney World come and set up camp in their state? I could name at least 5 states where the GDP of the state is less than the tax revenue that would be generated by Walt Disney World. But DeSantis doesn't care because he's running for office. He'll eventually be term limited out of Florida. He won't be able to run again. He's not going to become the president of the United States. He probably knows that. He's going to go off and be like Jeb Bush. You'll never hear from him again. But in the meantime, look at the damage that he's doing in the state, not only law by law to the education system, to democracy, to voting, to women's rights, to abortion rights, but he's ripping out the number one employer is now thinking about leaving the state. Let's be honest. The number one employer. Florida, for all of its, attributes, and I lived there for 20 years, has like 3 major employers. That's it. Okay, it doesn't have major industry. Yes, it's doing like a Silicon Valley in Miami, and it's all hip and interesting, and a lot of people from around the world are relocating there with second homes. But look at the industry. It's tourism. 1. It's hospitals. 2. It's education in the form of like the University of Miami. Go look up the top 10 employers in Florida, okay, and compare them to a place like New York State or New Jersey or California or Illinois, okay, or North Carolina, name it. It has very little industry. Florida, when was the last time you flipped over something and said made in Florida that wasn't like an orange? Okay, so he is playing with fire. He's literally playing with dynamite that could blow up in his face. And more importantly, to the residents of the state of Florida, if you polled the residents of the state of Florida, you really asked them, most of which love going to Disney World. They would be telling you, why is he rocking this boat with the threat that Disney World could pull out? It would be like if Miami went after the cruise ship industry and what would happen there, or somebody went after the indigenous people and tried to get their casinos away from them that generate so much tax dollars, or something got passed to go after healthcare and hospital networks, right? Or they forced the University of Miami to leave, or any of the private universities there. There's not that much industry, revenue, GDP in there that's not tourism driven. And now put a giant black hole and pull Disney World out of Central Florida. And what do you think European dollars go? Where do you think Asian tourism dollars go? You think they go to Orlando, Florida, when there's no Disney World there? When it's just a series of t-shirt shops and IHOPs and Waffle Houses? You think that's going to attract business, Ron DeSantis? So Disney is doing the right thing because it has one thing that Ron DeSantis doesn't have. Okay, it knows how to create jobs, it pays tax dollars, and it makes major billion-dollar investments in communities. And Ron DeSantis never created a job in his life. He never ran a payroll in his life. He never ran a business in his life. Go look it up. See what he did before he became governor. So that's where we are with Disney versus Ron DeSantis. State court case brought by DeSantis likely to be dismissed or at least stayed, while the federal case that was first filed by Disney on First Amendment violation rights is considered by a Democratic appointed federal judge in North Florida, as Disney continues to use DeSantis' own actions against him and continues as an existential threat to the economy of Florida, threatens to pull out of Florida. I'm going to follow it on hot takes just like this one. I sit at the intersection of law and politics. I do it on a show that I co-anchor and co-founded on the MeidasTouch network called Legal AF. And we're doing politically charged litigation matters wherever we find them, every hour, every day. Curate the best stories on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Put them on YouTube. We put them on podcasts, and it's all for free. Comment if you like. It helps. Give me a thumbs up on this hot take. It helps. And if you like what I'm doing, I'm Michael Popok, and you can follow me on all things social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.